the end of your day here. So I want to just kind of say hello to everyone and thank you for attending. We're going to kind of get started here because I'm sure some of you are ready to take a break from your work day. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. You can see that this session is being recorded. We have a few participants who couldn't make it, so they'll want to watch that recording. So if you feel comfortable with that, make sure you click the accept or the continue. So today's session is titled, No Annotate, No Problem, We Can Still Engage. So this is more for if you are considering or are doing now or for the future, going to host live sessions with students, maybe even prepping. And if you are prepping kind of, again, to figure out how do I teach these students if I don't have Annotate, maybe I'm using Zoom, maybe I'm using Google, maybe I'm using Microsoft Teams. So this would be the session for you. In the chat box, you will see a brief sign-in survey. I'm going to give you a few minutes to go ahead and complete that to see if we have any stragglers showing up as well. So that link is in the chat box. If you can do that now, that'd be terrific. And while you're doing that, for those of you that didn't recognize that tune coming in, it's Shania Twain's Up, because we're at that point where things can only go up, right? And that's hopefully kind of the motto that we're thinking about. Things can only kind of get better from here. And as we learn a little bit more, get a little bit more acclimated to things, we will go ahead and kind of prep and be ready for that up, okay? So today's session, there we go. Thank you for joining us. There is a sign-in chat or a sign-in link in the chat box. If you can complete that, that'd be great. Thank you, Chris. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started a little bit here. So for those of you who have not met me yet or have not done an engagement session, my name is Anita Young. I am a virtual learning specialist at the IU, but I also teach world languages with the World of Learning Institute, which is a world language virtual program within our IU. So I've been teaching online for a few years now, and I've worked with a lot of colleagues on engaging sessions, teaching world languages online and helping with therapies and anything else. So any way to deliver virtual instruction. So one of the things I kind of always like to tell people is, why do I do this, right? What is it? Why do I host these sessions? A lot of the sessions I like to host all have to do with engagement online. And here's my why. And pardon my mini rant here, but here's my why. This morning, I logged into my social media. And one of the things that popped up on my feed was this image right here. And I want you to notice a few things. It has almost 20,000 likes. It was this morning at 9:20 a.m. Caption says, a mom's photo of her kindergartner being totally over virtual learning has gone viral. This is the image that I see in a lot of places, and it kills me to see that this is what the perception, and so many people agree with, this is the way virtual education is. Then I logged onto another social media platform, and I see these posts. It's really frustrating. She's already done that at a friend's house. She's done already. How is this even going to be compared to school? It's all the time. So I ask myself, what's going on here, right? What can I do to help, right? The teacher in me, the person that loves engagement, what can I do to help? How do I make sure that this is not the image of virtual education? Okay? And you want to hear the worst part? You see this Tina right here? That's my own mother. And these are my cousin's posts. They know what I do for a living. But yet somehow my mother sympathizes. So how do I, as a virtual learning specialist, a person that loves engagement in virtual teaching, how do I change their mind? How do I make them believers that this is not what virtual education looks like or shouldn't look like? Here's the thing you didn't know. When you clicked on that social media link, there was an article, okay? So you had to follow a link and do this, do this. That same mother that posted that original picture later showed this picture in her social media. Guess what? That's not on the front of Good Morning America, though. That's hidden in an article. But this is now her son engaged. So she retracted a little bit, saying that teachers are trying their best. And this is why probably you're here, because you're that teacher trying your best. You want to be that teacher that makes that kid smile and happy and attentive during a live session, not the other kid. Okay? And this is really important because this learner, just like in a brick and mortar classroom, happy, attentive, will remember, will learn, and will do and participate and remember and be felt and feel like they're a part of a classroom community. So the one thing I want to share with you is, and this is for adults, keep in mind, that the attention span of an interested human engaged is 20 minutes. So you take away interested, you take away engaged, that drops down even to an adult, 5 to 10 minutes. An adult, imagine a child now, that's like 3 to 5 minutes. So it's truly, truly important to engage a child. We must be ready to engage them in a variety of activities, again, within that. Okay, yeah, some of us are. So it's really, really important that we emphasize the importance of engagement in live sessions. All right, so just some norms for today. Cameras on if possible, because I'm going to show you some activities and things you can do with cameras, if that's an option with your kiddos. Mic's off unless you're asked to participate or you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask. The chat box, we're going to use that a lot for engagement. And please, again, feel free to ask any questions at any time in there. And I am going to give you a little disclaimer. Even though we're using Zoom today, I am not going to use any Annotate tools. I'm not going to ask you to use any Annotate tools because as a teacher, you might have that option, but your kiddos don't. And we're going to use a few different things because obviously in Teams and Meet, students still have access to chat. They still have access to, cameras and mics. So those are kind of the things we're going to use within Zoom as well. Okay. So here's our agenda, and I'm going to play around with a little metaphor today, so play around with me. So our agenda today is it's just paper. You know what that is, okay? 2, let's start folding with engagement. And then 3, time to launch. What are your questions? So we're going to play, as you can see my paper airplanes, we're going to play with that metaphor a little bit today, okay? All right, so your virtual experiences, all right? So here's what I want to know, and we're going to do this activity first. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I want everyone to turn their camera off. Go ahead and turn your camera off. I'm going to turn mine off too, okay? All right, so everyone turn their camera off. So here's how it goes. When you answer yes to a question, I want you to turn your camera on, okay? So we're going to see what we have in common. You ready? Here we go. Have you ever taught face-to-face? Have you ever taught face-to-face? Boom. Awesome. All right, here we go. Camera's off. So we all have that in common. That was pretty good. All right, here we go. Have you ever attended a professional learning experience virtually? All right, see, we all have that in common. All right, camera's off. Next one. Here we go. Have you ever attended a meeting virtually? I would hope some of my colleagues for sure. There we go. Perfect. All right, so let's try 2 more here. Ready? Have you ever taught a virtual class live? Okay, so some of us. All right, perfect. Okay, camera's off. You ready? Here we go. Has your school district decided that you will be teaching in live sessions within the next month? Okay, so some of us. All right, go ahead. Yep, so you can turn on your cameras on if you want now, or you don't have to. But so this is a super easy activity. As you can see, it just requires cameras on and off. So you can do pretty much, what do you think? True or false, right? You can do true or false statements with that. You could, base kind of access prior knowledge, experiences. Have you ever gone in an airplane? Have you ever done this, right? So we can kind of gather some of that information. That's super simple. Gallery view, cameras on and off, if students are comfortable with it, obviously, okay? All right, I'm going to skip here. What do you teach? Because actually, you know what? I lie. Go ahead and tell me in the chat box, what do you teach? Sherry and Dawn, especially, if you wouldn't mind telling me what you teach. This way I know what I can go through a little faster or slow down a little bit more so I can definitely make sure I meet your needs. Okay, you could just tell me in the chat box or that works. Awesome. All right. So we've got math specials. I do have some math. First grade, I definitely have some elementary stuff. Perfect. Okay. And Sherry, I assume you teach a variety of things in first grade. So perfect. Okay. So we'll kind of touch a little bit upon those. So let's start with topic one, right? Topic one. It's just paper. You know what that is. So what does that mean? It essentially means that at some point in career, you've taught, you've planned lessons. This is no different. Just execution, different location. And that's kind of how we want to think about it. So if you were the teacher in the classroom that never liked having a kid put his head on the desk, didn't want the sleeping kid, we're going to do the same thing online. Let's make sure he's not sleeping. Let's make sure he doesn't have his head down. So it kind of depends. But ideally, we want good teaching practices both ways. So we start with our goals, objectives, right? And then we can go ahead and add the content. And my colleague Olivia and I will always use the metaphor. In other words, don't reinvent the wheel. What you would typically do brick and mortar, you're going to do the same thing virtually. Same process with your lesson planning. Okay. All right. So here we go. So to begin prepping, and I'm going to kind of breeze through these. So when you're thinking about prepping virtually, just consider, we will always suggest Google Slides or PowerPoints. It just kind of helps you stay organized, and you can monitor, are you engaging students a little bit better? Oh, I have an activity in there. Okay. And then I teach. Oh, there's another activity. So you can kind of see that a little bit better. Gather media. So it's a nice way to show images, text, videos, whatever it is. Surveys, if you want surveys, you can have them prepped. You can just share a link. Definitely give your kiddos an agenda so they know what to expect in that time that they're meeting with you. Documents, worksheets, and PDFs. You can still use them in a live virtual session if you want. You could just take screenshots, kind of put them on your slides. That's fine too. And then last but not least, kind of prepare your participants. So do your kiddos know that they have to be in Zoom? Do they know what link to go to? Do they know where to go in Google? Do they know where to, have a meeting in their Teams? So that kind of stuff. Do they need something downloaded? Do they need to have a mic? So kind of prep them ahead of time, make sure that they have what they need. And so here's some of the challenges. Again, you guys know what the challenges are, right? Student attention, because I'm not right next to them. So how do I tap on their desk if they are dozing off? How do I make sure they don't have Annotate tools? So what can I do? What are my other options, right? They have Chromebooks. Wasn't my fault the school bought the Chromebooks. So what do I do? And then giving students remote control access. So you can't do that. So the solutions. Plan your virtual delivery. Always have student engagement in mind and figure out ways to do that. Build a virtual classroom community. That's really important these days. And then create a toolbox of activities that work. So even if you have 5 or 6 activities and they work, okay, let's stick with them. Maybe we just make a few little changes, but stick with what you're comfortable with. But it allows you to have a little bit of variety too. All right, so here we go. Topic 2. Let's start folding with engagement. This is where I'll go a little bit slower here. So as I've always shared before, I like to have my students, when they come in, have a bell ringer. So it tapers off who comes in first, second, maybe I have some kiddos coming in a little bit last, but they have something that they're always working on. And you'll see here, my bell ringer lists 5 things that fly in your notebook. Okay, I teach online. They can still have a paper notebook. That's okay. So they can have that right beside them. That's fine. You heard music as you were coming in today. Yep. I'm a big fan right now of music when students come in. Just brings a different energy. So my topic is paper airplanes. So I have a song here that my students would listen to, again, just regarding airplanes, right? So they can listen to that in the background as they come in. There's my agenda. There's my objectives for the day. And there's my reminders. Typically during the bell ringer, and again, these are no Annotate tools. Students are using their notebook. And then we just unmute and I could take attendance. I could say, hi, Pat. She would unmute, say hi back, or just wave. That's fine. And I go along my list and kind of check off who's here, and we sign in. Okay. So that's an easy way. All right. So here's the things that we need for today. So as I suggested to you, and this is where you might want to suggest to your students. In fact, I love the idea of, you know, how we used to send home a list of materials that, you know, parents need to buy, school supplies list. Remember that? And some schools still do that. Some teachers still do that. And they say, hey, for school this year, you need blah, 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 blah. Well, that can look a little differently now. And what you could make is like your prep box for live sessions or your prep box for virtual education. And maybe you suggest to your families have a little box beside you with a few things that they would need during live sessions that are common. And that's awesome, Dawn. So they have a box right there where it has a lot of the common school supplies that they have just quick access to. So if this is what I need for today, I'd say, okay, students, get in that box and get out these few things, have them right there next to you. It's a lot easier and they know what they need for the class. So today's class, I would tell my students they need pen or pencil, notebook, rulers, pieces of paper. All right. So again, we're sticking with that paper airplanes theme. Okay. Not that you need that, but I'm just telling you what we'd want to share with students. All right. So here's a fun game. This or that. Boom or boom. This or that. Tell me in the chat box. Would you prefer this or would you prefer that? Tell me in the chat box. Which one? This or that? Drive that, fly. Okay, car. All right. Oh, we've got, in normal times, I should say too. All right, so we've got CMP. Okay, and you can have your students say what's in the image, car or fly or car airplane, or they can do this or that. That's fine too. But again, we're finding common ground, so we're building relationships, okay? But now this is kind of an anticipatory activity that kind of starts talking a little bit about that. So I can say, for example, all right, Sherry, why'd you pick that? So Sherry can unmute. Sherry, why'd you pick that?
I don't like how long it takes to drive in a car.
Bingo, good, okay? Perfect explanation, yep. So, and that's what we can kind of give students an opportunity to share too, right? And you can pick on one or give them an opportunity to, you know, request to share too. They could put that in the chat box. Can I share something like that? All right, so there's another activity. How about agree or disagree? So here's what I'd like to know. How many of you ever used, and Sherry and Dawn specifically, have you ever used Jamboard? No? No? Okay. No? Okay. So Jamboard is nice if you want to kind of use that annotation feature for more engagement and kind of get kids to be collaborative. So we are going to try this one together. So I'm going to put this link here in the chat box. And let me go ahead and share it to everyone. So there's the link. So go ahead and click on that link. And this is how you can share this with students. You just drop a link into that chat box. All right. So you see we've got strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. Okay. So here's what I want to know. Number one, airplanes scare me. Okay. So what you're going to do on the left-hand side, just watch my screen for a second. You're going to find the sticky note. And I'm going to put my name, Anita. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to drag my sticky note. Airplanes scare me. Strongly disagree. So go ahead, grab a sticky note on the left-hand side. It's the fourth one down. Put your name on it, and then put it where you agree with that statement. Again, the statement was airplanes scare me. So go ahead and move it around. There we go. Move it around. Excellent. Oh, we've got a few that strongly disagree. All right. Oh, yeah, definitely a few. Okay, excellent. So you can see, again, this is students, Four Corners activity, super great. Again, this is just building kind of differences, but let's try another one, okay? Or we can build, again, see what we have in common. I like to make paper airplanes is the second one. So go ahead and move yours. I like to make paper airplanes. Yeah. If I can hit my kids with them, just kidding. Okay, there we go. My kids love to make them. All right, good. Okay, so now we kind of have introduced the topic, right? So again, another anticipatory type activity to kind of engage our learners. All right, so go ahead and X out of that.
I was trying to move it on your Zoom screen and couldn't figure out why it wasn't moving.
And you're gonna find that that is usually a problem you have to troubleshoot with your kiddos. When it's the first time that you introduce them to a link, you have to tell them, hey, you got to toggle back and forth. Sometimes kiddos also, Zoom is too big and they try to get to a different screen, so you got to make it a little bit smaller. So that's an option too. You can do that, okay? Hold on one second. There we go. So second, that's Jamboard, and we're going to use it. We're going to do it with another activity. I just wanted to kind of give you a quick glimpse. What letter does the word, so let's talk elementary. What letter does the word airplane start with? What sound does it make? Okay, so airplanes starts with A, so this isn't a traditional A sound, right? So kind of a little bit more difficult. So let's say we're talking sounds, we're talking letters. Now, let me see. So Sherry, you said you do first grade. Dawn, but you do math specialist. So have you guys ever heard of boom cards? Give me a head nod, yes, no, okay, excellent, good. So I don't have to go too much into it, but the other thing you can also do with boom cards. So typically it's nice with boom cards if you're working with one student, you can give them remote control, but with Zoom, that's limited with Chromebooks and things like that, and some of the other ways to meet with students, you can't technically give remote control. So, but it doesn't mean you can't use boom cards either. So please feel free to use boom cards and then just have students share. So for example, the airplane's about to take off. There are items that are still left on the luggages. Help me find them by listening to the sound of each luggage. All right, we ready? Everybody listening ears, here we go.
Apple.
There's the yellow one.
Ambulance.
Okay, so tell me in the chat box.
Apple.
Is it the yellow one?
Ambulance.
Or the blue one? Is it
Apple.
yellow one?
Ambulance.
Or the blue one?
Apple.
So here's our picture.
Apple.
Apple.
Ambulance.
Ambulance.
Apple.
Okay, so there we go. All right, so that's what, you can still have students participate. They can either share in the chat box, or we can do something like this. You ready? If there's only two options, we could say first one, second one, first one, second one. So let's engage them with gross motor, right? Or physical. So if you think about the principles of TPR, right? There's movement involved, kind of get your brain working a little bit more. So we can do some of that. Yellow, blue, right? You can kind of do some different things to get them engaged to respond, even if they personally cannot click on the screen. Then you kind of take a look. All right, overall consensus, here it is. Okay, and we can go from there. So boom cards are kind of nice for that purpose. They could still be used in different platforms. All right, so I'm gonna X out of that one. And we'll take a look at a few different examples. All right, my favorite, and I think this one's the easiest because it doesn't require much for prep, where you just provide an image. What stands out to you? All right, so we can do this one a few ways. All right, so Dawn, unmute and tell me what stands out to you from that picture.
Actually, the first thing I saw was his watch.
Perfect. Okay. So watch. That's all I needed. Just a short answer. Thank you. And then I could go to multiple students. We can all talk at the same time. You can have students use the chat box and kind of share what stands out. Okay. So you saw the watch, maybe because it was orange. I see the paper airplane. Some people might see the big giant city. Okay. So there's different viewpoints that we can get in here. And again, we're still building. My husband just started teaching online. And he is a social studies teacher, and he uses a lot of images to kind of figure out what students' prior background knowledge is on a topic. So if he has a picture of a scene that happened in whatever war, he can say, okay, well, what do you guys see? Well, who do you think that is? And why do you think that is? And we can ask a lot of those WH questions, figure out what they already know, and then you can introduce some very basic facts while you're having this discussion. So it doesn't take very much, but a picture can do so much in a live session. And it visually keeps that engagement. So that's a really easy way. And again, to build discussion in your class. Again, that's just a mic, muting, unmuting. Okay. And by any means, if you have any questions as I introduce some of these activities, let me know. Just feel free to unmute. All right. So let's read together. So it's kind of hard. to obviously in Zoom with the Annotate tools, you can highlight things and do all this stuff, right? But we don't have access to that. So how do we read together then as a class? Few ways. One, you can give students a few minutes to quietly read the screen. Nothing wrong with that, okay? Two, we can do, one of my favorite readings, and especially in Spanish, was always playing pop reading. Kept everybody on their toes a little bit, okay? But pop reading, essentially, I read as long as I want to go, right? So I would pick student, whatever, and they would read. And then when they were done reading, could be in the middle of a sentence, at the end of a sentence, pop, and then I'd pick someone in my class. And then they'd have to pick up reading. And they might read 2 words, they might read 5 sentences. But again, it's just kind of that engagement, keeping them listening and focused. Uh-oh, am I going to get called on? Am I not going to get called on? Is my peer going to pick up? You know, so you kind of a little bit of that. Make sure you have a good classroom rapport before you play that. You know, you don't want anyone picked on or anything like that. But that's a really cool way, again, just to kind of build engagement, make sure that students are attentive during a reading, a group reading, I should say, aloud. The other things, if you wanted to do, if you wanted to highlight, if you wanted to underline key terms, circle main ideas, copy and paste the text, put it in a Jamboard. And then on the Jamboard, you just, again, just like we did, I shared a link, you open up the text, and then your students can draw on it and highlight it, identify key statements. What are key words? What are key words to some students, but not in others? So you can still do a lot of that reading, you know, decoding, trying to find the main ideas, you know, identify the adjectives, circle the nouns. You can do a lot of those activities, but if you want them to physically do it, check out Jamboard. Just copy paste the text, share the link, and pretty much it, okay?
I think that's a really good one for little kids too. You know,
Oh,
like
yes.
just, you know,
Especially
this,
learning to read and
you know,
build
that
comprehension skill.
kinesthetic, tactile piece. Like, even though it might be super messy or whatever, like you still get the idea, and everybody's super messy, you know, when you're just using a tiny little thing. But I think especially for little kids, that tactile really keeps them engaged, like that their hands are doing something.
Absolutely.
So it's one of the reasons I love, like with little kids, like know my grandson with his, you know, speech and language stuff and things like that, that the more tactile they are, it seems like the better you can get them going.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that's kind of reading. So if you wanted to present a text, if you wanted to do some reading, that would be it. So brain breaks, let's talk brain breaks. Every kiddo needs ones. Every adult needs them. So you need brain breaks in there. And listen, brain breaks aren't 15-minute breaks. They're a few seconds, they're a few minutes. So on your screen, you're going to see a few that are non-screen based. Do 3 laps around the room flying like an airplane, right? Let's keep with our theme, right? So we would get up, fly around the room. Yeah, you might catch some kids running around. That's fun. Do 15 jumping jacks, right? Stretch for 2 minutes. Take a restroom break. They might need it, right? So we prefer to give them that time now versus them walking out in the middle of a session. So give them that time. Grab a drink from the kitchen, okay? Again, you have kids that ask for water breaks in class. Same thing, now would be the time. And those are norms you can set when you first start live sessions, like, hey, I promise if you need to go to the restroom, you need to go to water, you know, we'll have some time in the middle of class. You can do as many brain breaks as you do it. I will tell you, my rule with brain breaks, personally, is I like to do a little bit of direct instruction. We do an activity, I do a brain break, and then if I need to do instruction again or another activity. So I kind of break things up, I chunk it a little bit, and my brain breaks are short. So if I do 2 in a half-hour or 40-minute lesson, I do 2. But it depends on the activities I'm doing as well, depending on how long they take. But kind of just keep that in mind. You can do screen ones, right? You can pull up a music video, a dance video, they can follow along, a yoga video. So you can do anything with that and stay with the theme of your lesson too. But those are just some ideas for non-screen. All right, so let's talk virtual field trips. And I don't know if you've tried these in your brick and mortar classroom yet, but you're virtual, you might as well try them, right? So virtual field trips. So again, I can introduce, so this is more social studies. So let's talk social studies a little bit here, right? geography, social studies. What is the Eiffel Tower? Where is it located? What do my kids know about it? Do you know how much it costs to fly from the US to Paris? France today, let's see what that looks like. So there's a little bit of my cross curriculum, right? I'm talking math here now, right? And do you know any other facts about the Eiffel Tower? So this is, again, just background knowledge. And then you can see views, and I would just share my screen with students. Here are views just from Google, by the way, could be your best friend, Google Earth. But so here's views. And again, the chances of many of our students here in central Pennsylvania, they don't maybe travel as much. So this is a really cool way, virtual field trips, especially nowadays, right? Not many families are taking trips to kind of show them different things. So here's what the view is from the observation deck of the Eiffel Tower. I don't know if any of you have ever been. I have not. It is on my bucket list. So again, it kind of shows some students a little bit about what it looks like. They can walk. And this is just me controlling. If you want your students to control it and do it themselves, just give them the link, copy the link, put it in the chat box. So virtual field trips are kind of a cool, neat thing since you're virtual anyway to kind of give them those experiences. And then media. So let's talk media again. So let's keep going. So here's a video, YouTube video. I can just drop it in my slides. And again, this is now, you can see kind of how I'm building, right? So I just we talked about paper airplanes. We talked about the Eiffel Tower. Here's a paper airplane launched off of the Eiffel Tower, where students can kind of watch the flight of it. And now we're starting to kind of access prior knowledge regarding the flight of the airplane, okay? So how was the airplane created? What materials? How does it look like it's folded? Guess the distance. Oh, there's still math a little bit. Describe the airplane's path. Oh, we can ELA a little bit here, right? Why do you think it traveled that way? So now we're depth of knowledge. We're getting a little bit higher up there, right? We're thinking a little bit more critically. So that's kind of the things that we're starting to talk about, because then I introduce my students to the biggest paper airplane competition in the world. And it's called the Red Bull Paper Wings. All right, and it tells you, I'm gonna tell my kiddos all about the different categories and everything else. I always get the question from math teachers especially. If my kids can't annotate, how do I know if they're doing problems? How can they show me they're doing problems? Okay, how do I know that they're doing what, how can I scaffold and get them to do it? So I wanna show you, so this is a Jamboard here. And what's nice about Jamboard is you can create different slides. So you'll see I've got 3 different slides set up. So what I would have my students do in this situation, I was going to give them the site to this Red Bull Wings competition. And I was going to tell them the winners are posted in meters. Okay. So they were going to find that information. Just skills of finding data on a website. They were going to come back and tell me, what did these top 3 winners, what was their measurement in meters? How far did their airplane go? Okay, we've got that. Then we're going to talk about conversion. So this topic, this math lesson is on conversion. I'm giving them the principles that the conversion is 3.281 feet per meter. All right, great, Mrs. Young. What does that do for me, right? So let's go to the second slide. Let's do this together. Here's my scaffolding, right? Now I'm going to show them. And I can write on the screen. I can write right on here, right? We cross multiply. We set up our equation. Listen, I haven't done algebra in years, so bear with me. So we set this up, right? So we've got our 3.281 times our, 56.61, right? Equals 1x, and then we divide, whatever it is that we do, okay? So we can kind of do this, cross multiply, solve for our x, right? So we know now that's how many feet it is. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and clear it. Whoop, I don't wanna clear all of that, okay? But then, that's great, we just scaffold, we did this together. I might even ask a student, I'll share the link, I might even ask a student to help me do this, right? I'm gonna do it with them. Then on the third one, I'm going to ask the student to do it by themselves, okay? And we can do this. It is hard to write with a mouse, and that's a great question. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's a lot easier to write with your finger, like on a on like an iPhone or an iPad. It's almost a lot easier. If your students have access to a stylus, great. But I'll be very honest, I don't care what it looks like, what my students' writing looks like. That's just me personally. But they also have the option to do a text box. So if that's a little easier, okay, they can do it in text too. That's fine.
I guess it's
go ahead.
more about the process than the finished
That's
result.
my opinion personally.
Yeah.
But you know, to each their own, but absolutely mine is just all about the process. Then the last one would be how many
Your
feet.
kids have done some amazing things though too, like Anita, like when you would give them a comprehension and they had to draw what was happening.
Yeah,
like,
we're
I
gonna
watch you do
yeah.
that. Like that is so cool.
Right. So, and again, that's to each their own. I'm not, you know, nobody's a Van Gogh in my opinion. So especially online, virtually with a mouse, but you know, you'd be impressed, you'd be surprised. But anywho, so the last part of this, again, if you want to give your students now the opportunity to do it on their own. Okay. So within Jamboard, you can do it. You can set up different grids, have each student set up their problem. This is now where they can do the editing and the writing on the screen. Depending on how many kiddos you have, the other thing you could do is they could each make their own copy of these. You can make them force a copy into their own Google Docs and they have it all on their own, then you can check it. So if this is something, Dawn and Sherry, if you're definitely interested in more with math and how to do this, I think we can set up a different time to really go through with this and how it can look like for math in a live session. But Jamboard's a really cool option that you can actually see the kids doing the problem. Worst comes to worst, they do it on a notebook and ta-da, we could do it that way if needed. So if that's what needs to be done, that's fine. But know that Jamboard does give you that option to see it on the screen. So that's pretty cool. Jamboard is free. It's like a Google. It's a Google application. So, yep. So again, that's kind of how I would maybe do some math conversion. No, I don't think so. I don't know if somebody can chime in if anybody knows that, but I thought it was free. Yeah.
When I first went to it, the option popped up to buy it, but I realized I was logged in as me. So then when I logged in as the IU person, and then it seemed to be fine. But as I said, I wasn't sure if that's because of the G Suite account versus the not. But
right. Yeah.
okay.
I didn't. Yeah. Maybe the actual one does. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. You can put that in there. I share it at the end of the slides too, but I'm pretty sure. And again, a lot of us have personal, you know what I mean? Not that you want to use your personal stuff. But if it's just a whiteboard option, just to kind of pop up a blank screen, something like that, that would be okay too. So we're going back to science. So let's kind of turn a little bit, talk about hypotheses, right? So we can give our students definitions. We can kind of give them this information. And you're going to see how to write a hypothesis. So how can we do this? We can have our students have a notebook, physically write it, and then share it via chat privately, right? Or publicly. But if you just kind of want to assess, you could probably ask them to send it privately. All your chat features have that private option. So that's kind of an easy way to do it. Maybe they have a virtual notebook where they can submit it to you. Maybe there's an assignment they are going to submit in their other platform. So there's different ways to kind of walk students through this. One of the things that I love during virtual sessions is even non-screen related things, trying it, okay? So one of the things would be for this lesson, having students create their own paper airplane. I give them directions. They're going to launch it. I set my timer for 8 minutes and they do this and they can sit there and they can turn their camera off. They can leave it on. That's fine as long as they're doing it. And if it's something that they're trying, something they're having fun with, they're going to do it. And then again, and then here I am tying it in, write a hypothesis predicting what may happen. So they'll go back to their original hypotheses, edit it a little bit now that they know we're talking about an airplane and the way it flies. And you're going to see that I say, send it to me privately. I'm informally assessing. How much did they learn? Did they really figure out what a hypothesis is? Did they write it correctly? And I can give them feedback right away through that private chat, okay? And again, this is just a timer I put on the screen. It's obnoxiously loud when it goes off, so that kind of helps too. But that is there too. And they can visually see the timer, so they know they have to stay on track. Again, same thing you might use in the classroom. You might have a timer in your classroom, same exact thing. All right, so we're going back to math, data, and science. And same thing, maybe your students measure the distance that it flew in inches. What's that look like in feet, right? We can still do conversions. Now we're just doing inches and feet. We're not doing meters, but you can kind of come back. So we ask them to measure it, then come back to Zoom, and now they can compare with their friends. Oh, mine went 5 feet. Oh, mine went 2 feet. Mine went, you know, so we can kind of build some fun activities within that. Then also here, if my box would let me, I also found there are boom cards for math related activities too. I don't know if you've checked it out. And there are, it's not just very basic elementary. There's also some secondary options too. So please check out the boom cards as well. There's definitely some options. And again, we're problem solving. This is just a worksheet. I could still bring in a worksheet. And even though my students can't write on this, I might be able to. So I can write it as we talk. I can make sure that they know that their input's valued, and I can write it on there, okay? They could put it in the chat box. I can do it. So this is just a problem solution, and kind of going back and figuring out, well, why didn't my plane fly? Well, Timmy's went 5 feet. Mine only went 2 feet. So what can I do to fix mine? So again, we're still doing a lot of the cognitive skills that they would do in a classroom. It just looks a little differently, okay? Your KWL charts, they still exist virtually, okay? We could still do them. And again, even if they can't write on the screen, I can value their input, listen from them, either from the chat box or from their mic, and I can write it. Or we just talk about it, that's fine too. And then I can upload it into our asynchronous platform so they always have it too, okay? And there's my obnoxious timeline too, or clock, a different time, but maybe we do together the K, right? We do the K together. And then I give my students 5 minutes or 3 minutes to do the W. What do you wonder? What do you want to learn, right? And that's really important that we give our students kind of some of that choice too, and some of that option to make those decisions. So that's kind of one of those things. And hopefully this doesn't go off here. And then learn, we can come back to that after, right? That's a good way to end our lesson, informally assess as well, okay? All right, whoops, we're gonna stop that. Okay, so we're kind of moving on. Padlet. Have Dawn or Sherry, have you guys ever used Padlet before? Dawn, you have, Sherry, you have not. Okay, so Padlet, kind of like a Jamboard, kind of, but has some different features too. And it's a little easier to draw on it. So here's some few different options I'm going to give you with Padlet, and you can kind of think about what you teach and how you could use it. Option one is, I would say, okay, follow these directions on your own. So this could be asynchronous almost, right? So I can share this with my students in my Google Classroom. I put a Padlet and I say, okay, hey, check out this website, build your own paper airplane. You pick which kind you want, and then take a picture of your final one and show it. It's a virtual bulletin board, essentially. And they can talk, even if we're not in live session, they can comment on each other, they can like their pictures, they can do all that, okay? Second option, which we are going to do, is when you listen to a prompt, scenario, story, and you draw what you hear. So Pat was alluding to this. I love this activity. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's one of my favorites. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the chat box. Let me close these things out. I'm going to put a link in the chat box. Don't mind my Shania Twain in the background, okay? And again, if you need to make Zoom a little bit smaller, just double click on the screen, open it up. All right, we ready? So here's how this works. I'm going to read a short little story. Just listen real quick. I'm going to read a short little story, and I'm going to have you draw what you think will happen next, okay? So here's how we do this first. I'm going to give you the instructions on how to do this. To get a box on the screen so you can participate, bottom right-hand corner, click that plus sign. Where it says title, put your name. So I'm going to put Anita. And where it says write something, I'm going to click on that. But in order to find my drawing tools, I've got to click on that ... and find draw. A little box pops up. Stay there. Okay, stay there. All right, so let me see. I might need to refresh here. And what's nice is this happens in real time. So let me see who's got some boxes. All right, yeah, we're ready. Okay, here we go. Here's the story. Listen and then finish and then draw, okay? And again, I don't expect Picasso, so do what you can. Actually, do what you can. Here we go. We ready? It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Jimmy just finished up his science class. The teacher taught a lesson on the physics of paper airplanes. He was done with school for the day. He went downstairs to get a snack and just relax on the couch. When all of a sudden walked in Jimmy's little sister. She was just screaming and yelling. Jimmy sat there, rolled his eyes, and when he looked over, he saw a piece of paper lying around on the table. What happens next? Draw it. What do you think happens next? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to draw. Go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead. Got about a minute. And if need be, I could read my scenario again for any learner that might have missed something. You kind of know your students, so you can read it as little as you want. It could be as short of a story. Sherry's ready. Here we go. Got about a little less than 30 seconds. I'm going to delete mine. Brenda drew a snowman. I'm kidding. Oh, yeah. Pat, I don't know what's going on. I see flying pizza. I see paper airplanes. I see Chris. All right. It is a snowman. I was right. Okay. All right. So what's really nice is we can have fun with this. Okay. So time's up. So this is where we can have fun with this, right? So not everyone's going to be a great artist. And that's okay. The idea is really, one, kids are having fun. They are engaged. And now I can ask the more questions of where I want to go academically. All right. So Dawn, you ready, Dawn? Okay, Dawn, what did you draw?
He just bunched up the paper and threw it at his sister.
Okay. Why do you think he did that?
Because he was aggravated with her and it looked like it was something easy. He could grab it and he wouldn't have taken the time to make a paper airplane. He would just pitched at her head.
Perfect. So you're going to see that in my questions, I secretly had Dawn recall facts, right? And understand her comprehension of that story. Okay. So I like to use the drawing tool a lot with Padlet. I just think it's the great place to do that. And let's think even math, right? So this might be where I have in the directions here, maybe this is where you post a few math problems and students have to do them. Now, just be reminded, this is a virtual bulletin board, so students are going to be able to see other people's work, okay? So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, how you want to do that. But this is actually fun to see each other's work because we can always joke about it. The teacher can crack some jokes. We can lighten the mood. And we can like each other's stuff. Ooh, I got 5 likes. Ooh, I've got, so you can take that feature on and off. You know your kiddos if that's something you want to try or not. But that's what's really fun about it. So I'm going to tell you, I love Padlet for that reason, for the drawing and for the instant in class, this can happen and what we can do. All right, so I've got about 5 minutes here. So the third option, gallery walks. So if any of you do vocab especially, right? vocabulary words, defining them, maybe including a definition, a sentence. That's a great idea to do a gallery walk within Padlet. Really, really cool feature. So again, just the purposes, it's very collaborative, Padlet. It could be very collaborative. You could check for understanding, informal assessment. Again, I can see what my students understood. As long as I can kind of see their drawings, it's good enough for me. And again, sharing of ideas, resources, peer interaction, teacher interaction, there's a lot going on. So Padlet's a pretty cool feature. Padlet is free. You're allowed 3 Padlets for free. So what I tell you is reuse, delete, reuse, or have like a drawing Padlet, and that's the one you always use for drawing. Maybe use another one for virtual bulletin boards and another one for something else. Kind of use what you can for free, kind of thing. All right, gamifying the sessions. We always get questions on, can I play games? Can I do this? Can I do that? Yeah, so there's 2 options. Option 1, you can use things like Kahoot, Quizlet, Gimkit. You can use all that. Again, you can kind of just screen share and students can access it from another tab, just like you're doing everything else through a different device. Option 2, you can gamify the chat box. All right, and this is my favorite way to play because it's easy to set up, super fun, and we don't have to go anywhere else, okay? So here's how we do that. You ready? Race to the chat box. So let's see who knows the right answer in the chat box first. Ready? Here we go. Number 1. Most historians believe that the blank were the first to build paper aircrafts. I don't know if anyone read that text a few slides ago. Chinese. Good job, Dawn. Awesome. So Dawn would get that point. She was first to the chat box, first to get it right. So good job, Dawn. Okay. I like popcorn. Now, here we go. Ready? Number 2. The Montgolfier brothers used paper to make what? Dun, 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 dun. Any guesses? Any guesses? Wings, propellers? No. No. Any guesses? It was, oh, I got another guess. Tacos. Oh, no food. Hot air balloons. They made paper to make hot air balloons. Yes. So hot air balloons. Okay. So here's what I want to do. So as I'm monitoring the chat, I'm going to say now, all right, number 3. We ready? Here we go. The Blank brothers are said to have used paper planes as part of their research into building the first human carrying airplane. Yes. Dawn again. The Wright brothers. Good job. Yes. All right, so super, super easy way to do this and gamify engagement. Again, just race to the chat box. That's what I call it. My kids loved it. So that's perfect. Yeah, to the fast typers, it helps. Yep, awesome, good job. But it's really important too, that's a good point though, to acknowledge all those that put in a correct answer. And then you're gonna see that you're gonna have some students who maybe don't start to answer, right? And maybe that's where you keep the game short, okay? Because we want to make sure we keep all students engaged. So again, we could do that as a little bit, but not maybe a long break. Or a long activity, I should say. Last but not least, our exit activity. Again, I like the exit ticket. It could be the L side of the KWL chart. It could be a survey. It could be a follow-up. And then I tell my students, share one new thing that you learned with me privately in the chat box, just so I can informally assess, you know, what you know or what you learned from my session. Okay. All right. Questions. Fire away. And before we go ahead and stop the recording, because we can answer some questions. These are common questions I get. Should I create slides for presentations? I'm always going to say yes, because it makes sure that I don't break that 20-minute engagement rule. I can definitely keep myself in line. How do I build classroom community? Show and tell, open houses, office hours for parents in the evening, hello, goodbye routines, themed class days, school spirit, kind of those things. Here's some examples of some from different schools, if that gives you an idea. I know a bunch of schools did that in the spring, which was nice. And then I do give you a bunch of resources. I'll share with you the slides as well, but that'll give you a bunch of extra resources if you're not sure. And then we do have a social media competition for those that attend. So I will again give you the slides so you have all the kind of rules, I should say, to participate. All right, so now, and again, Chris, I'm gonna just drop this. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I'm gonna drop this in the chat box now before I forget. This is just a little survey. This way, if you guys see anything specific, like if you definitely like the math Jamboard with math, you know, let me know and we can maybe plan something else just specifically Jamboard for math or Padlet with math. We can kind of tier off and make specific webinars for people that need it and specific things. So fill out that survey. Let me know your ideas. That would be greatly helpful. Other than that, I believe we can probably stop the recording, Chris.